Hi guys, so a somber and subdued Boris Johnson was in Parliament on Monday, laying out his new three-tier plan to deal with the pandemic. So let's hear what he had to say.
So, Mr. Speaker, we don't want to go back to another national lockdown. We can't let the virus rip.
Okay, so if you can't go back to a lockdown and you can't let the virus rip, there are no other alternatives, Boris. You either do a lockdown or you allow the virus to rip. These half measures are not going to have any real impact. The reason being is that when the UK went into a lockdown, it wasn't a complete lockdown. I don't think it went far enough, but it did suppress the numbers and suppress the R number to a great extent. The problem was that it was eased too quickly and measures were removed that could have stopped a second wave, or at least reduced the impact of a second wave. Now, the alternative is just to let it run rampant. Now, of course, there are certain people within the Conservative Party that would like to just let the virus run rampant. And if Boris Johnson is not balancing the economy and the pandemic, he's actually balancing the two wings of his party. The one wing that wants just to let everything go to hell, and the other that wants to protect people.
And so we've followed, since June, a balanced approach with the support of many members across the House to keep the R down while keeping schools and the economy going.
And to a certain extent that worked. What happened was you eased the lockdown, the test and trace was not working, and instead of actually imposing another lockdown, you're imposing local lockdowns, which are demonstrating not to work.
We need to go further. We will now simplify and standardise our local rules by introducing a three-tiered system of local COVID alert levels in England, set at medium, high and very high. The medium alert level will cover most of the country, and will consist of the current national measures. This includes the rule of 6 and the closure of hospitality at 10 p.m.
So this first measure doesn't work, Boris. We've seen many videos of people congregating outside pubs after 10 o'clock. In some cases, people leave the area to go to a supermarket to buy alcohol in order to return to that area and continue celebrating whatever party they started in the pub. This is insane, and it's not dealing with the pandemic. Once again, these are attempts to avoid a lockdown. The lockdown worked. The writing on the wall is that the lockdown worked. Avoiding a lockdown is just extending the pain and the suffering.
The high alert level reflects the interventions in many local areas at the moment.
So the alternative, of course, is to do the local lockdowns. But unfortunately, these types of lockdowns don't limit people moving in and out of those lockdown areas. So you can lock down a city, but if people are free to move in and out of that city, then you're going to see a spread. So once again, you need a national lockdown, not a local one. And also, a local lockdown that lasts a week or 2 weeks is not going to have a great impact on the virus.
This primarily aims to reduce household-to-household transmission by preventing all mixing between different households or support bubbles indoors. In these areas, the rule of 6 will continue to apply outdoors, where it is harder for the virus to spread, in public spaces as well as private gardens. The very high alert level will apply where transmission rates are rising most rapidly and where the NHS could soon be under unbearable pressure without further restrictions.
Once again, you need a lockdown to protect the NHS. At the very beginning, Boris Johnson said, stay at home, save the NHS. And that worked. The NHS survived because people stayed at home. What's happening now is you're seeing The numbers are increasing. The NHS is getting closer and closer to full capacity, and winter has not even begun. We're still in October. Wait until November and December arrives. It's going to be absolute chaos. Boris will have to implement another lockdown.
In these areas, the government will set a baseline of prohibiting social mixing indoors and in private gardens and, I'm sorry to say, closing pubs and bars. So in each area, we will work with local government leaders on the additional measures which should be taken. This could lead to further restrictions on the hospitality, leisure, entertainment or personal care sectors,
which have been suffering the whole time. You need, once again, I know this is unpopular. I know people don't like to hear this, but you need to impose a full lockdown once again, because the first one was eased too early and measures were not put in place to deal with it, to deal with the after lockdown effects.
But retail, schools and universities will remain open.
Just today, there was a news article about 700 students in one university tested positive. So, where is the science to support the idea of maintaining universities open? Can't students at universities, I know schools are different, but university students in many cases don't need to be in the university itself studying. They can do it remotely, at least for the time being. I know there are practical skills that they need to learn. That needs to be postponed until we're over this. But at the moment, university students should be studying from home. The problem is that universities need money. That's why they want students to return to the universities.
Local authorities in the Liverpool city region will move into the very high alert level from Wednesday. In addition to the baseline I've outlined, this is as well as pubs and bars. In Merseyside, gyms and leisure centres, betting shops, adult gaming centres and casinos will also close.
Once again, these are half-arsed approaches. What Boris is doing is he's not trying to deal with the pandemic. He's trying to maintain peace within his party. And he's not going to succeed. He's not going to be able to maintain a lead on this pandemic because you need a lockdown. We've seen how a lockdown works. We've seen how the numbers decreased dramatically as soon as the lockdown was imposed. There is no alternative. These types of half measures of closing pubs at 10 o'clock in the evening or closing pubs completely in a town but allowing universities and schools and certain businesses to remain open in another town where people are free and at the same time people are free to move from one town to the next is just facilitating the spread. It's an attempt by Boris Johnson to look like he's doing something. But in reality, he's not doing anything. He's afraid, not of the virus, but he's afraid of his own backbenchers. He's afraid that they're going to rebel against him and kick him out. So he feels, I need to do something, but I can't impose a lockdown because they would kick me out. But at the same time, I can't allow the NHS to be overwhelmed because then I'd be kicked out as well. You know, images of people sitting outside hospitals waiting to get inside is very bad for the government. It would bring down the government. So Boris Johnson doesn't want to go down that road either. But by these half measures, that's exactly what's going to happen. Winter is going to arrive. The hospitals are going to fill up. The NHS has been underfunded for years now. Just pumping a few billion in at the last minute isn't going to fix this problem. The NHS almost collapsed last winter. It was on the edge, and that was before there was a pandemic. Many elective surgeries are going to be postponed or maybe cancelled. People are not going to be able to get the treatment that they need. This winter is going to be a disaster, And this, unfortunately, is not the end, because we also have Brexit in January, which is going to add an extra, gallon of petrol on the flames. Once again, you need to go into a lockdown. I think the lockdown, the original one, should not have been ended so quickly. It should have been extended until the numbers were dramatically down, and then start the test and trace, implement the test and trace to make sure that you're able to follow the small number of infections that would have taken place at the end of the first wave. And then you're able to come into the second wave much better prepared. The government are not prepared for a second wave. And they're trying to balance, should we go into a lockdown, should we not? And time is running out. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?